Air is directed by Ben Affleck and stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, Chris Tucker, Viola Davis, and among others. And in this story, it deals with the shoe line Nike that tries to essentially get Michael Jordan on board to create what's called the Air Jordans. And I'm not going to go into detail for those of you who don't know the story of it. And if you don't know the story, well, it's kind of obvious if you know in real life. But basically, the movie chronicles Matt Damon's character who wants to strike a deal with Michael Jordan and his family to try to find a way to get Michael Jordan on board to go with the branding of the Nike Air Jordans. And along the way, it basically becomes a conflict of interest as it's basically dealing with him trying to go with the struggles in order to try to get the family to agree with getting this done, while the family is basically more looking into other deals that go on with Adidas and Converse and among others. And now here's a little backstory. Now this movie was directed by Ben Affleck, who I've become an avid fan of him directing films over the years. The only one of his that I haven't fully watched that he did was Gone Baby Gone, which was his directorial debut. I actually used to own the film, but I have to still get it again on Blu-ray. But ever since that film came out, it seems like he's really found his way to becoming a really strong director and making really great films. And the one that got me interested the most when he became a director was when he did that bank robbery movie called The Town, which I still to this day really love, and that was my introduction to Ben Affleck as a director. And ever since then, I got a really good kick out of Argo. I really enjoyed that film as well, and I also did like Live by Night, although I could see some of its flaws it does have, because it felt like during that film it seemed like it was kind of rushed, the way that Affleck was kind of making it, since he was still trying to play Batman when he was getting pressured by Warner Brothers at the time. And so that was one of those cases where it felt like the movie just was kind of not really in his forte of what he was wanting to probably do, so to speak, because it seemed like he probably would have had more time had he not been under so much pressure. But I've always just admired Affleck as not only an actor but also as a director, and coming with the news that they were going to bring into the story about Michael Jordan having to have this deal with Nike, it may seem like it's like what it would seem basically the kind of film that you would go into that's very dialogue driven. And from what I heard, it's kind of the equivalent of films that deal with this, like Moneyball, and movies that basically use sports as basically like a backdrop, and focus more on the other like business standpoints. And so going into the trailers for this, it got me interested in that it wasn't doing a traditional sports type of film. It was mainly dealing with the business model behind the whole sports, that basically, and Michael Jordan's presence is all around. And growing up as a kid, I didn't watch a whole lot of sports, but I did really enjoy, every now and then I would, get into seeing like stuff involved with basketball players and stuff, especially Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and all that. And when I was a kid, I always seen like maybe clips on TV and stuff of basketball games happening and things like that. And around the time when I was a kid, I think I did see some times when Michael was playing and stuff. But the guy just really had so much talent, and he is considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And so when I was a kid, my introduction to him surprisingly was a Space Jam. And a couple years ago, when they brought out that documentary called Last Dance, I finally got a chance to check that out, and I haven't fully finished it, but I really liked how in that documentary it really detailed the life of Michael Jordan and everything. And so seeing a movie that was more about the branding of him when he was still trying to get his rise to fame going on got me interested in how they were going to tell the story. And so after seeing the film, I can honestly say that, well, this is definitely a winner for one of the best films I've seen of the year, because not only does it really showcase a lot of what this company went through, especially for being set in the 80s, but it also really feels like a really good inspirational type of movie, that, succeeds in trying to be, basically showing that this company never gave up in trying to work with Michael Jordan. And so to get my pros out of the way, I really thought the performances in this were great. I thought Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, everyone involved, including Viola Davis, they all knocked it out of the park. They were fantastic in this. And one of the biggest standout characters the most that I actually had some interest in it was actually this one guy that represents the Jordans, he's basically like their agent, and he's played by Chris Messina. I think it's how you pronounce his name. He had me cracking up at points, and he was actually one of the scene stealers. You know, he would say like him and the conversations that go on between him and Matt Damon are one of the highlights, especially how. Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there's a whole phone conversation that gets into some territory where Chris Messina is getting like really pissed off at some of the ways that Matt Damon's trying to pursue him and trying to get Michael Jordan involved. And just the way that he delivers his lines is just the way that he, you know, made it into that funny remarks that he has would crack me up. Because this movie does have some funny stuff in it that was really surprising. And one of the other two biggest standouts for me the most that were great were surprisingly Chris Tucker. I'm glad to see him in a movie again after I haven't seen him in so long. And the last one I even remember seeing him in was actually Silver Linings Playbook. And I remember him really being good in that one. And I'm glad that he's still doing, you know, acting here and there with some movies, especially in dramatic territory. And he was great to see, and he really had a great job playing the more kind of refined type of, you know, performance where he does have a different kind of voice than what he's used to or what I've seen with him. And there are some funny moments here and there that I did enjoy, especially toward the end. And then the other one, surprisingly the most, that I think really doesn't really get much recognition is Marlon Wayans. Now, I've seen Marlon Wayans do some more serious stuff, especially in Requiem for a Dream, and when he's not really doing comedy, it really shows that I really kind of would like to see him and do more dramatic work, because it showed Requiem for a Dream and in this movie that he has the chops for it, and he's really great in this. He's not in it for a whole lot, but, I mean, when he is on screen, I thought he was really great. You know, and just the way that the movie does the whole storyline with Matt Damon having to essentially, you know, try to pursue Michael Jordan into trying to do this deal and thing, it shows a lot of the stakes that took place, where even if you never really knew about the true story and stuff, as a movie standpoint, it really works because it tries to really showcase a lot of, you know, this is basically a win or break deal of what would happen with the company. And what I also like, too, about this, the way the movie folds along, is about how, you know, the guys involved, with Matt Damon's character involved himself, Matt Damon's character is really trying to not give up, and he wants to really, you know, see how it works out with Jordan trying to take this deal. And the way that he goes and leaves of trying to really recognize it on a very human level, with trying to reason with the Jordans, is not only very touching, and there's also a really great motivational speech that at the end that I thought was really great, that really, you know, pulls your heart into it. And so I really got a kick out of that. And, you know, the soundtrack and the production design is all top-notch, too, especially the way that Affleck is able to blend in a lot of stuff that's from the 80s, and especially we have an opening montage that's pretty much what you expect when it's set in 1984. You know, especially funny seeing clips of, like, Beverly Hills Cop and, you know, other stuff that was surrounding the 80s. And just the soundtrack, you know, hearing classic songs was great. And, you know, and also one of the things I also really appreciated was, I'm not going to go into detail, but there's a scene that also happens where if you've ever heard Michael Jordan's theme song, they do play that in one part that I thought was really cool. So that was great. So there's really little to no flaws I have with this movie, because, I mean, it really is a very, you know, not only very great gripping story with how it showed that this company was trying to really get Michael on board, but just the strategics of how they went in detail with it and stuff, especially this whole segment that involves where the person that created the logo and stuff, that's known for creating the Nike logo, how really, you know, they really go into much of trying to make the logo and everything, you know, that can create some conflicts with how they try to present it in the marketing stages, because that was a big thing back then in real life that the NBA wouldn't allow on a certain aspect. But I still thought, like, man, this movie just had so much going for it, and it's really kind of goes by at a quick pace too, where it is very dialogue driven, but it's the good kind of dialogue that kept me so invested. And so overall, I really love this movie a lot. There's more than going into detail, but it is pretty much what you expect. And so with that, I'm going to give Air a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. It'll definitely be on my best of list for the year. So for those of you who have also seen Air, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.